Kidnapping the bride tradition?
I am not the oop. Oop is you/anxious American bride. Oop gives her permission for this beau-roo. Kidnapping the bride tradition? Originally posted to r/wedding planning. Original post Sept 22, 2023. Hi. I, 24F, am in the process of wedding planning. My fiancé's, 24M, side is Scottish and they have many different traditions. I learned one today called Kidnapping the Bride.
His cousin explained that a few days before the wedding a few of my fiancé's relatives and friends were going to take me to a pub and we'd stay there until my fiancé found me. They said it's a bonding experience where I hang out with his family and friends and my fiancé can bond with mine as they try to find me. His cousin is a bit of a prankster and is more familiar with the town my future in-laws are from. My fiancé lives in America but makes several visits to Scotland to visit. We are getting married in Scotland since he has older relatives that couldn't travel to the States. I had never heard of this tradition before, but when I looked it up, the best I could find was a version in Germany. The only Scottish tradition that was similar included covering the couple in food as a joke. Asked his grandmother about the last one and she said they would never do that one. I'm worried his cousin will purposely choose a pub hard to find or pull a prank on me when I'm there. Has anyone else heard of this tradition? Is it common? If so, what happens during it? It sounds harmless, but I have an anxiety disorder and the idea of being alone with his friends and family for hours without him scares me. I'm scared I'll say something dumb or make a fool of myself. I'm close with some of them but not all of them, but I guess that's also the point of this tradition? Relevant comments.
Emera for the jiggles. Dating myself with this reference, but it's in the movie Maid of Honor. Do you have reason to believe the cousin would be malicious? It sounds like innocent fun to me and would be a good opportunity to get to know them, as you said. TBH, being worried about making a fool of yourself or anything like that is kind of catastrophizing. Oop replied. Logically I know they wouldn't do anything intentionally to hurt anyone. They can just be a lot for me, and that's totally Amy thing. His cousin is classic extrovert, they just like to joke around a lot.
It's more the second thing you said. I want to make a good impression since according to cousin, multiple relatives I haven't met before will be in on it. I'm more worried that they'll try to mess with my fiancé by picking somewhere in the middle of nowhere and I'm in an awkward situation for several hours. It's also just a little scary being in a place I've never been with unfamiliar people in a country I've only visited a handful of times. Also, never seen Maid of Honor but just checked the wiki. My fiancé did mention a tradition involving throwing coins for the children in the wedding, but I haven't heard the peck for a coin. I'll have to ask about that one. We're doing a hand fasting and the family has a special bowl, cup that we both are drinking out of during the ceremony. There's also a specific song my in-laws asked to be played as the last song of the reception. But that's all the traditions I can think of at the top of my head. We're still in the early planning stages. Update September 29, 2023. Update. I talked to cousin and I'm glad I did. We talked for over an hour. I explained I'm nervous since I've never been anywhere in Scotland without my fiancé before and asked about the kidnapping. Cousin admitted they plan to make it like a puzzle for my fiancé to solve since he's mentioned we both love escape rooms. Texting clues to the pub's name or location, etc. And even some relatives are in on it already. One of his aunts runs a bookstore and a clue could lead to her, and she'd give him another clue. Cousin explained it had been so long since anyone in the family married and they wanted to go big. Cue terrified bride. I told cousin that it sounds fun, but might overwhelm me. Cousin tried to reassure me and after some back and forth, they admitted my fiancé's grandparents wanted to rent out a place and make the whole thing a second bridal shower party for me since lots of relatives won't meet me until closer to the wedding. They were going to drop a surprise party on me. It sounds nice but, wow. I asked cousin about scaling back and we reached a compromise. Cousin will give me the location as soon as it's decided and, per Reddit's advice, I can bring a friend, relative with me. And there's a cutoff point where if my fiancé gives up or I've had enough, we text my fiancé the location. And I can have as much contact with my fiancé via phone as I want. Cousin. Of course you can. This isn't a hostage situation.
And they apologized for overwhelming me. Relevant comments. Ice eliminates. Sounds like you've already gotten to know his family better just in discussing all of it. Glad you were able to tell them what concerned you and they were able to compromise for your comfort. Also, this sounds so fun to me. At my partner's family. Let's step it up. Oop replied.
Lol. Yeah, it sounds like they really want to connect. I didn't realize how tight-knit fiancé's family was before, but thinking back. According to future dad-in-law, they basically adopted his wife when they married, so it makes sense. This is a repost sub IAM, not the oop.
Aw, this is so cute. And not at all how I thought it would go down given the usual posts here, lol.
That does sound like a fun tradition, and I hope Oop manages to enjoy it. I can understand why. With it being called Kidnapping the Bride, Oop would be nervous. But it sounds more like a scavenger hunt where finding the fiancé and the celebration is the treasure. Maybe it's a different part of Scotland they do this, but as someone who has lived here all their life and been involved in several marriages, I've never once heard of this as being a tradition here. Well, this was wholesome. Everyone communicating and actively solving the problem. This surely can't be our best of Redditor updates. I must be lost. Someone point me the way, PLS. We have a similar thing in Bulgaria. The groom and his side of the family, friends, try to storm his in-laws' home where they've hidden the bride. It can be as dramatic as they want, but usually it's just two sets of people tugging at each side of the front door, while the bride is awkwardly hiding behind another door or curtain, and it's super obvious where she is. Then the bride's family, friends, bridesmaids try to block the groom by holding out their shoes to him, and he has to fill up the shoes with money. If I hadn't personally participated in this, I'm only just realizing how weird it sounds as I'm writing it out. Cold sweat smile. At the end, after the bride is found, but before we all head to the registrar, everyone just dances outside on the street with a little band playing music. And all the neighbors from the surrounding buildings watch. Sometimes even join in on the dancing.
Communication for the win.
I want to know the aftermath now.
We also have this tradition in Romania as well. They usually take the bride/groom for a walk in the park, to a pub or stuff like that, and then when they come back they ask for ransom to give him/her back. All in good spirit. Another custom is stealing TGE bride's shoe and ask for something in return. Usually a small sum of money, liquor, or groom to do something fun in exchange. It might sound creepy, but usually it is pretty light and made for a good time. No strip clubs or stuff like that.
All I can think of is The Office when Moz kidnaps Angela.
As someone that absolutely hated being surprised at my bridal shower, I feel for the op. Some of us introverted, anxious people are really overwhelmed by surprises like that. I am glad the cousin told her the truth. Sounds like she is entering into a great family. Having your feelings count is a huge sign of respect. I was expecting a grab her and put a sack over her head to kidnap her. But this just sounds like Oop goes and hangs around at a party while waiting for her fiancé to arrive. Nothing scary about it like I was expecting. I remember another post where they did do a traumatizing kidnapping and it didn't go well at all. What a surprise, s. I'm German and can confirm that people do that here. My mother was kidnapped by my uncle and my father drove around the countryside, from town to town, drinking beer and finding clues in every pub along the way. Took nearly 2 hours until he found her. That was back in the 70s. pretty wild. As someone that lives and got married in Scotland, to a Scottish man it's not a common tradition across Scotland. It's usually only done in the Highlands, Islands and maybe more rural areas. It's also usually known by a completely different name. As somebody from an European country where this is done every wedding, this is actually a lot of fun. It is usually done on the wedding day after most of the stuff is already done. Around 10 p.m. the bride disappears with the siblings of the groom as well as his closest relatives, best friends, and takes her own best friend or sisters along. They go bar hopping and leave the bill for the groom to pay. The groom gives them close to an hour head start because there are not that many bars in small towns and villages. Usually around 11:30 to midnight they return and are celebrated by the people at the wedding. The leaving of the bride is not a success, as she will make rounds to give people who leave early, elderly, kids, the chance to say goodbye. The groom very intentionally does not pay attention during that time on when exactly she leaves. Weddings usually go at least until 1 a.m. so almost all people will still be there on the bride's return. There is even the official tradition of the midnight snack, usually a stew, because people get hungry again around that time. Overspending. The amount of bars visited and money spent is agreed upon between wife and husband beforehand. Usually bars are told the cap too. Very few people can afford not to. Way better than the kidnap proposal post. I get why people find this wholesome, but I would find it stressful AF. If my in-laws tried to kidnap me and forced me to hang out alone with them for hours, I would be anxious too. My husband and I have been together 10 years and I still try to not be alone with them. I'm more hung up on the fact that she never goes anywhere without her fiancé. LMAO, this isn't a Scottish tradition? I'm so confused where this has come from, ahaha. I'm Scottish with relatives from all over Scotland. I've never heard of kidnapping as a tradition.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Heracast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.